From what I've seen, most players think Fire Emblem Engage is one of the hardest in the series, especially on Maddening difficulty. It features many anti-juggernauting mechanics like the chain attack system that the enemy abuses to beat even your strongest units. So I wanted to see if I could solo the game with Alear on Maddening difficulty. My rules are only Alear can damage enemies, my other units must unequip their weapons, and I can only use the wait command on them. With that done, let's begin. In the prologue, I followed the scripted fight and beat Sombront with Lodestar Rush. On Chapter 1, I move Alear into a forest to be safe and move Vander into another forest. I do this to make sure I don't activate Vander's personal skill, as landing a critical hit will reduce the amount of EXP I can obtain. Alear continues to kill the corrupted while I move Vander to the north. In order to fulfill my contractual obligation to kill every single character, I unequip Vander and send him at the northern corrupted, as they have slightly higher strength than the southern corrupted and they deal a whopping 3 damage to Vander. Vander eventually dies and I send Alear to combat the remaining corrupted. I don't engage with Marth as engaging will increase my damage and may reduce my EXP gain. After a few turns we win the battle. On Chapter 2, Vander revives himself from the dead and we gain 2 additional units that I have to kill off. On turn 1, I stay in a forest and almost die to an axe fighter, but I get a lucky dodge and beat him with a Lodestar Rush. Lumera now moves while I stay in the forest. I remain in the forest until I can defeat Lumera. When more enemies spawn, I use my disposable light runes to shield Alear while he kills the remaining enemies. I now bait out Lumera and the 2 sword calves, and get put in a sticky situation. Fortunately, Lumera attacks Vander instead of Alear for some reason, giving me an opportunity to heal with vulneraries. I continue to run away until the sword calves are defeated, and Lumera is no longer engaged. I put Vander in front of Lumera, but she refuses to kill him. Despite getting a full engage meter, Lumera refuses to engage and I take her out, winning the chapter. Chapter 3 of this Alear solo run is probably the hardest in the game. There are an excessive amount of lance units that keep breaking Alear, and the sheer amount of enemies are very hard to deal with. My best strategy was to put Alear in a corner and pray for good luck. This fails and Alear dies multiple times. My final strategy consisted of killing the lance soldier on turn 1 with Lodestar Rush and moving my other units into the corner. I now steadily move up to the engage tile and get a lucky dodge to kill a Pegasus Knight and beat another Pegasus Knight with Lodestar Rush. With the initial enemies mostly taken care of, I move into the bottom left corner to prepare for the next wave of enemies. I sacrifice Boucheron and run around the map with Alfred to bait out the archer. This doesn't work as I expect, and the archer moves back to attack Vander. The boss follows Alfred while Alear clears up the remaining enemies. Alfred now dies, leaving only Alear and the boss remaining. Alear attacks the boss for a massive 1 damage. Fortunately, I can engage and equip a rapier to deal a whole 5 damage per combat. I continue this battle of attrition as the boss uses their vulneraries while I use mine. Eventually, I beat the boss with a Lodestar Rush into attacking on enemy phase. We now receive the bonus items from hit mobile game Fire Emblem Heroes. For Chapter 4, we gain access to the Sigurd Ring. I debate between using Marth's Ring or Sigurd's Ring, and end up deciding to use Marth's. I enter a village and obtain a useless javelin. Then I take significant damage on enemy phase. I try to heal up, but I just die. On attempt 2, I head to the fort for break immunity, but when my engage runs out and the mages start to show up, I lose. On my next try, I switch to the Sigurd Ring. Louis dies on turn 1 to a mage, and Chloe distracts the other mages. I use the Rider's Bane to take out the axe calves and stay on the fort. Chloe dies on enemy phase and Alear takes out another cavalier on player phase. I stay on the fort while Saline dies. Then I use Sigurd's Override to aim to retreat to the fort on the other side of the map, and fight a bunch of enemies to recharge my Override, so I can use it again. This strategy was a little too ambitious and I die to a Surge Mage. This situation seemed unwinnable, so I reset again. I now use the same strategy as before of luring the enemy to the fort, but this time I move north to the upper choke point. Next, I land a huge override and retreat to the southern fort. I now run around the map in circles and stand on the emblem tile to recharge Sigurd. I eventually have an opportunity to do a huge override that kills like 5 guys in 1 turn. I keep at circling the map, using the forts to heal, using Canter to retreat, beating enemies one by one until only the boss remained. The boss actually had so much defense that I couldn't deal damage to them, but with Sigurd's skill Momentum, I could deal a small amount of damage. The boss also had a javelin, and I couldn't attack from 2 range. To beat the boss, I slowly run around the map until Sigurd recharges and I use Override to deal considerable damage without risking a counterattack. I do this until I win and beat the chapter. We now receive items that I'm not going to use and inherit a Void +10 from Marth and start Chapter 5. At first I use Sigurd's Emblem Ring, but end up dying, so I switch to Marth and I attempt to dodge tank on the pillars. This kind of works, but I need to make sure I take out the archers. Marth's healing really makes this effective and I clear up the first wave of enemies. For the second wave, I back up until I reach the choke point, and with some luck, the enemies were down. For the final formation of enemies, I bait out the sword users. I expect to be able to take it nice and slow and finish off the others, but the boss and his 2 lance calves chase after me. I now pull back to the pillars and fight some of the enemies. I've run out of vulneraries, so I have to retreat to the north. I use this wall so the boss attacks from the other side and now run all the way to the protection tile on the other side of the map. And with Marth's Rapier, I cannot be hit by the boss so they don't attack. By abusing the protection tile, I beat the boss and obtain a Seraph Robe. I use the Seraph Robe and do the arena, where I only fight the emblem rings because I've killed off all other characters. I inherit Cantor and engrave some of my weapons before taking on Chapter 6. Chapter 6 features an unfortunate loss condition of Yunuka dying, so I have to prolong her death for one more chapter. In this map, I enter the thicket tile and take the enemies as they come, but when a Thunder Mage shows up, I have to pull back to the choke point to the east. A Fire Mage also shows up along with the boss and I move to the thickets to the east. I use Cantor so I can take down some of the ranged units and retreat to the thickets. With this strategy, the boss is eventually defeated, giving us a talisman and completing the chapter. On Chapter 7, no one shows up to cook as I have killed off almost all of my characters. In my preparations, I forge a Levin Sword and engrave some of my weapons. As for Chapter 7, we defeat an Armor Knight and retreat to the nearby protection tile, while the enemies dispatch with my units. I drink some pure water and equip a Fogfanger, my weapon with Micaiah's engraving, to increase my avoid. This makes my avoid high enough that the Lancers won't attack me. When their numbers are sufficiently reduced, I equip a Levin Sword to take out the ranged units. Alear now proceeds to kill every last one of them, and does the same for the next formation of enemies. We now fight Hortensia. She uses All for One to deal a massive 5 damage. By staying on the protection tile, we are almost unbeatable, and the remaining enemies attack me for very low hit rates. I use Mercurius for the increased EXP and beat the map. With the Master Seal I obtained from Hortensia, I promote. We now take a detour to do the Paralogs. For Paralog 1, I charge into the middle of the map and take on most of the enemies. Due to the survival of the villagers being optional, I leave them to die as I head to the southern village to get a energy drop to increase Alear's strength by 2. The remaining enemies are extremely weak and the rest of the chapter was easy. For Paralog 2, I use Warp Ragnarok to go over the wall and canter to the chest with Anna, so I can kill her off with haste. Alear's combat power is now high enough that he can one-round Armor Knights with the Levin Sword. Now I clear up the map and bait out the boss, so I can steal their heal tile and finish off the remaining bandits. Fun fact, if you kill off Anna, you get some special dialogue at the end of the map. Chapter 8 was a defend map where I only have one unit that can kill our foes, so I had to kill the boss as fast as possible. To make this easier, I buy some tonics to temporarily boost my stats. On turn 1, I use Warp Ragnarok to move in range of the boss and fight the mage with a droppable secret book. Amber now dies and I take down Ivy's first HP bar. Diamond also dies while I finish off Kagetsu on enemy phase. Despite being able to seize the point, the opposing Pegasus Knights don't move and Ivy attacks Alear, putting her HP just in range of Alear to attack her on player phase, winning me the map. On Chapter 9, the shop sells more items, with the most noteworthy being a second seal. I immediately buy this and reclass Alear to Wolf Knight, so they can wield daggers to fight most opponents and still wield the Levin Sword to fight armored knights. We can also now buy an infinite amount of all the tonics, so I buy some. Anyway, Chapter 9 is easy. I just run to the fort in the south and most of the opposing army have like 2% hit rates. I remain on the fort and clear up almost all of the map. With most of the enemies taken down, I move in range of Ivy. Ivy's group is easily dealt with thanks to my Iron Dagger and I finish the map. To start Chapter 10, I place Alear on a pillar and attack an armored knight with a Levin Sword. On this pillar, some of Rosado's axe flyers cannot hit me, so they don't move. I beat Rosado with an Iron Dagger and move up to combat a mage. With Cantor, I move on a pillar and begin taking down most of the units around Hortensia. I get greedy as I take down a thief to obtain a Draco Shield, and on enemy phase, Hortensia activates Divine Pulse to one-shot me with Lewin. Next time, I move out of Hortensia's range and attack the thief on the next player phase. I move just outside of melee range of Hortensia and take on some enemies. I almost die to some chain attacks, but I get lucky and finish off Goldmerry. When Hortensia runs out of uses on her magic ballista thing, she attacks Alear with L-Fire and he one-rounds back. She does the same thing again and I finish her off. Next I open the door to fight Morion and his group. They don't do much damage, and the healing from the heal tile is more than enough to beat them. Hyacinth is surprisingly hard, as if he hits me with all of his clones, he nearly one-shots me with the Manikati. Fortunately with the heal tile, it's easy to stay healthy and we finish him off with a Lodestar Rush. On Chapter 11, we lose all of our emblem rings and have to make do with bond rings. On turn 1, we hide in the woods and get jump scared by Celica. We continue to hide in the woods and Marth almost kills us. Now I steadily kill my foes and make my way south to the escape point. Eventually the 4 hounds show up, but luckily I get some reinforcements of my own, of Zelkov who dies in 1 turn, Ivy who dies in 2 turns, and Kagetsu who dies off screen in 3 turns. I make my way to the escape point, but choose to see if I can fight the 4 hounds. Grizz had Dark Warp that he used every turn, so I can't win and I just escape on an earlier turn. Between chapters 11 and 12, we train with Lyn to gain useful skills like Speed Taker and forge a Steel Dagger. Chapter 12 features a difficulty spike as we now face promoted enemies, but with Lyn's Speed Taker, I trivialized the map by stacking a lot of Avoid. We also recruit 3 new units that all die very quickly. There really isn't much to say about this map as most of the enemies can't hit me, and the ones that can deal very low damage at very low hit rates. With very little effort, I beat the map and move on to Chapter 13. Chapter 13 is very similar to Chapter 12. We gain 3 units that we kill off, and after stacking Speed Taker, we are pretty much invincible. I visit a village to gain a Seraph Robe and slowly trek through the map to attempt to find all the enemies. When I think I've found them all, I go to the bosses and beat them. On Chapter 14, I realized that this isn't a challenge run, but the secret easy mode as I continue to fight enemies with extremely low hit rates. Again, for this map I just stack up Speed Taker and slowly kill the enemies one by one, other than the thieves that I have to move quickly to beat so I can collect the boots, a useful stat booster. In the final room we face 3 of the 4 hounds. The only enemies that can hit me here are the hero, the swordmaster and Hortensia. The sword units are easy to take down. As for Hortensia, I beat her first HP bar on player phase. With full HP, I can survive her on enemy phase and counterattack for another HP bar, and on the subsequent player phase, I take down her third and final health bar. I change my weapon to lower my Void, just low enough that the bosses will charge me, then I take them down with ease by abusing the heal tile. With just 2 swings of our 11th sword, we fell Marnie and beat the chapter. Next, I decide to do Lucina's Paralogue. First, I kill off Hortensia, and then I use the Frail Mages to set up Speed Taker, and slowly kill the initial group of enemies. When the enemies are down, I bait Lucina from 2 range as at 1 range she will decimate me with effective weaponry. I now take out an axe unit and move to bait Lucina from 2 range again. On this enemy phase, I beat one of her health bars, then I take out a longbow archer on player phase. I use clones to distract the enemy, then I use Astra Storm and Canter to move in range of Lucina with a bow, and I take down another health bar on enemy phase. On the next enemy phase, I finish her off and win the chapter. On Lyn's Paralogue, I stay in the woods, as most of our adversaries cannot land hits if I stay in them. Lyn starts to move and spawns a huge group of enemies when she starts to use Astra Storm. I now try to stay in the woods, but the backup unit's chain attacks chip me down, so I rewind and retreat to the left. I now circle the map, slowly taking down enemies as they come. After 1 loop of the map, I take down some of Lyn's clones to reduce her firepower. Now Alear hides in the woods and I take down the Bow Knights. By positioning Alear correctly, Lyn uses Astra Storm in range of me, attacking and cantering back to the woods. With this strategy, I clear up the Paralogue and increase Lyn's max bond level. On Chapter 15, we face a problematic objective of making Seedol arrive, as this means that I can't kill him off. On turn 2, I rescue Seedol and use clones to thin the numbers of Axe Fighters. The other Axe Fighters really like hitting this wall for some reason, so I set up Speed Taker easily. The next group of enemies cannot hit me and head straight for Seedol. I use Alear to block a choke point, but thanks to a miasma tile, I cannot kill some of them and they slip through. So I now move Seedol to the bottom left of the map, but I wasn't paying attention and a Thunder Mage attacks him, dropping him to low HP. Alear is now placed to slow enemy movements while I kill them as they come. When just 1 remains, he stands still and doesn't move for no known reason. The next room of enemies are very easy and I open a room to a chest with a energy drop. Suddenly, the game decides it's tired of my turtling and sends in 4 Gulsis style reinforcements from the stairs in the previous room. I take them out with my 11th sword as they only have a 2% chance to hit me. Again, the next 2 rooms of enemies are easily beat since they have a 0% chance to hit me. Before ending the chapter, I pick up a talisman in a chest. On Chapter 16, we are joined once again by Seedol, who is now dead, and 2 other units that are also now dead. I rush to take the fort on the lower part of the map, but I get frozen and can't move. I reach the fort, but the enemy spawn right on top of me. Luckily, they can't hit me. In case you can't tell, this is another map where most of the enemies can't hit me and I slowly kill every last one of them. The bosses Movia and Marnie can't hit me, and I take Marnie down with the 11th sword, and Movia with a crit from my steel dagger. Chapter 17 is usually one of the hardest maps in the game. But is it still hard if all the opposing units have like a 0% chance to hit? Obviously no. Gris is our hardest enemy here, but we take him out on like turn 4. Now I slowly kill some of the enemies and make my way to Marnie. I attack one of the Armor Knights in her formation, and it baits out Movia. He has an impressive 7% chance to hit me with a Shine Tome, and we beat him. I bait Marnie out with my clones and end her with my 11th sword. I trigger the AI for Veil and Hyacinth to move, and they are both scary, as Lodestar Rush can deal fatal damage to me, and Quadruple Hit does like 30% of my HP. I use my clones to bait out these moves, and finishing off their health bars are Child's Play. Also, Zephyr doesn't use Override for some reason despite it having a 100% chance to hit. Alear now scrambles around the map, finishing off all the remaining enemies, winning me the chapter. On chapter 18, I get overconfident and charge in and almost die on turn 1. For this map, I make my way to the chest in the top left to pick up a speed wing to further increase my avoid. I then hunker down in the top part of the map and wait for the enemies to come at me. Since there's no avoid increasing terrain, I actually face foes with hit rates, with the most noteworthy being the wyverns with certain blow that are particularly hard. After the enemy's numbers have been diminished, I recruit Linden, a sage that I send at the boss. I then land a critical hit on the boss, ending the chapter. I now take a detour to do the Sigurd Paralogue, a map where the most threatening enemy is a healer with a freeze stave. I slowly trek through the boring map, defeating the mini-boss and dropping the drawbridge. Sigurd now charges at me, but suddenly stops, and I run up to him. After hitting him a few times, Sigurd is defeated. This increases his max bond level, allowing me to inherit Panther Plus. On chapter 19, we are joined by Sophia that gets warp skipped on turn 1 and dies before I can recruit her. This map continues the gimmick of the endgame being extremely easy as none of the enemies can touch Alear and we slowly kill the enemies. When I fight Movia, he has a slim chance to hit me with Farney for near fatal damage, but he misses. To beat Marnie, I abuse the Wolf Knight's class skill, Hobble, to reduce her movement, then run away with Panther. Doing this made it impossible for her to land a Blazing Lion, making me beat another easy chapter. Chapter 20 of this Alear solo run is surprisingly hard. Grizz always moves just outside of your range with Ragnarok Warp, and in a solo run, this means that if you put yourself in range of him, he will attack turn after turn after turn. To prevent this, I reload my save and head to the other side of the map to defeat the thief that has a secret book. Another huge pain of this map is the AI is now smart enough to abuse chain attacks, and this results in me dying if I face too many backups in one turn. I try to take this map slow, but I accidentally put myself in range of a warrior with a longbow and die on enemy phase. Since I ran out of Dragon Time Crystal uses, I reset the map. On my next try, I take it even slower than the last time, and when I've cleared out most of the opposition, I get hit by Gris until he spawns at the top of the map, then I defeat him with ease. The next two maps were looking really tough, so I journeyed to Corin's Paralogue. I vastly outscale all the enemies here, and the only problem I face is Corin using the Water Dragon Vein to decrease my avoid. I slowly run around the map until I can fight Corin, who has a 0% chance to hit me and is a free win. This unlocks Corin's max bond level, allowing me to inherit the pair up skill to become immune to chain attacks. Unfortunately, I don't have 2000 SP to learn the skill, so I have to make do for one chapter. On chapter 21, we are joined by Movia, who is now dead, and I now make my way to the west of the map. But since I have not stacked up Speed Taker, enemies actually face hit rates on me, and I almost die. In order to sustain my dodge tanking, I take down the snipers as they have the highest hit chance on me. I continue to stack Speed Taker until even the most accurate enemies cannot hit me. Now I use my clones to bait out Vale's group. This causes the entrapped user to move closer to the front, which is important as if I get entrapped, Vale will kill me with Lodestar Rush. I now take out the entrapped user and figure out that Vale's AI will never leave the protection tile, making it safe to attack her from a distance. This makes it easy to defeat her, winning me the chapter. On chapter 21, we are joined by Vale. I kill her off, completing my side objective of killing off every other playable character. The AI now gathers around me, in what I theorize to be some sort of celebration party for me killing off every other playable character. Now I slowly fight my way through the hordes of the corrupted, prioritizing the heroes as their chain attacks will cause me to die. Eventually, I rescue some of the emblem rings, and now realize that the difficulty from this map comes from there being infinite reinforcements to the south, and I am not proficient enough to kill the enemies fast enough for this to not be a problem. I equip my 11 sword so more corrupted attack me, pinning their numbers, allowing me an opportunity to head south to collect more rings. When I reach the bottom formation of enemies, I die to a warrior as the corrupted all attack me at once and chip down my HP with chain attacks. Eventually, I acquire the final emblem ring, stopping the reinforcements, making it easy to route the map. On chapter 23, we enter what seems to be like an active volcano, but in an ironic twist, we spend most of the map frozen by enemy stave users. Before the map, I inherited the pair-up skill from Corin, so now Alear is pretty much invincible, and I slowly move towards the bosses and defeat them. On chapter 24, we must defeat past Alear to clear the map. All the enemies have awful hit rates, except for the snipers on the ballistas, but I don't really have any problems until I reach the boss. At first, I try to attack from a distance and canter away to avoid a fatal Lodestar Rush. This unfortunately doesn't work, as I don't kill the boss quick enough and the healers keep healing him. On my next try, I use clones to bait out a lodestar rush and then run away. I decide that I will have to risk the chance for them to hit me if I want to win this chapter, and begin attacking them on both player phase and enemy phase. As long as I hit with my attacks, I can take down a health bar with 4 slashes with a steel dagger. With enough time, I land a critical hit, winning me the chapter. Chapter 25 is usually one of the hardest maps in the game, but in an Alear solo run, only the snipers can hit me, and now they can't. I make my way to the boss, but I decide to grind for SP. Ultimately, I just get bored and go beat up Lumera, ending the map. In preparation for the final map of the game, I forge a Peshkat for its high critical hit rate. To start the final map, I start stacking up Speed Taker, but when I beat Sombron's first form, my Speed Taker boost goes away, so it was a waste of time. Sombron now transforms into his dragon form, and I take down 3 of the 4 dark emblems to weaken his damage reduction. Then, I carefully move next to a backup unit, so Sombron thinks he can damage me, but thanks to Pair Up, he cannot. With Peshkats, I deal 10 damage, and Sombron is always the first to move on enemy phase. This means if I land 3 critical hits out of my 4 opportunities to attack, I will be able to take down Sombron. With this strategy, I turn into Sonic the Hedgehog and land the killing blow on the boss, ending the final chapter of the game. We now see how effective my amazing LTC strats are, and I also go out of my way to get the good ending where Sombron kills everyone. In conclusion, this run was kind of hard at the start of the game, but around the time I picked up the Lin emblem, I completely steamrolled the rest of the game, and I generally think that this is the easiest way to beat the game on Maddening difficulty. If you did enjoy this video, be sure to like and subscribe, and let me know what you think of the run in the comments.